This Quarcast podcast is brought to you by the new book Sola Deus by Keith Giles. What if God is all of us? If God is the one in whom we all live and move and have our being, then perhaps we are the ones in whom God lives and moves and has being. If so, where does God end and where do we begin? In this new book, author Keith Giles asks us to reconsider our common assumptions about God and ourselves in ways we've never imagined before. Sola Deus, available on Amazon from Choir Publishing. Get yours today.
The mind that was in Jesus, that mind is in me.
Without me, life has no meaning.
Why would God tell you what I'm thinking and tell you what I've said to my wife or my husband when you're not around? It's because I'm the pastor of the church and I need to know.
This is the only place where you can see truth.
Hey, heathens. Welcome to the Deadly Faith Podcast, where religion and crime collide. I'm Laci.
And I'm Lola.
And this shit is wild.
I want to know.
Hey, okay. So this is episode 1 of the actual Deadly Faith Podcast. So we're going to get into today's episode, today's case. It's a wild one. It is going to have you...
Is it scary? Am I going to cry?
No, you're not going to cry. You're going to laugh a little bit.
Okay.
You're going to be like, what the fuck? And you're going to be confused on what to feel. And I'm actually excited to kind of like, I hate that I say that. I'm excited to talk about murder with you guys, but but I'm excited to kind of delve into like your opinion on this because a lot of people feel different and there's like two different sides and you might like hear the case and start feeling one way and then change by the end.
Oh, I hate those.
Yeah, this is a weird one. This is really, really a weird one.
Two truths at once kind of thing.
Definitely. There's two truths at once when it comes to this episode. So
to preface, I don't know anything about this. I have not looked it up. I literally asked you today. Who is it again? What are you doing again?
Bernie Tiede is the case for today. And when I told her this was the one I was doing, I told her I wanted to do this one because it's kind of it's a palate cleanser, basically, for the first episode. And she was like, I have no idea what this episode is. I was like, great, don't look it up because I want to hear your real life reaction to this case. So let's get into it. We are going to be hearing the case of Bernie Tiede and the death of Marjorie Nugent. Okay, so Bernie Tiede was born August 2nd in 1958. His father was an immigrant from Ukraine, and he was a music professor and choir director at multiple colleges throughout Texas. He also served as church music director. He was what we would call a vocal performer, what we call today like a worship leader. And this is all Bernie's father. I know, like, because it was like back in the like 60s.
Wait, this isn't Bernie? This is Bernie's father.
This isn't Bernie. No. This is Bernie's father. This is Bernie's daddy.
Oh, Bernie daddy. Sorry.
Bernie daddy. So Mr. Tiede, he married a woman named Layla Mae Jester in 1957, just 1 year prior to Bernie's birth. But unfortunately, Bernie was only 3 years old when Layla Mae actually died in a horrible car accident. The father was actually driving and they got into the accident and it killed her.
Ugh.
Mr. Tiede struggled with the passing of his wife since he was the one driving the car. He really struggled and blamed himself for it. And so he actually ended up turning to alcohol to kind of cope with that, which was not good. But he did end up remarrying another woman. But when Bernie was only 15 years old, his dad passed away. I couldn't find out from what. And I don't feel like he was all that old to be dying when your kid's only 15 years old, but he did.
So mom and dad are gone.
Mom and dad are gone and he's only 15 years old. So like, I can't imagine losing both parents at 15.
That's a crucial age. That's when you decide what music you like for life.
Yeah.
Also.
Right? 15 is like the worst stage. Like,
no, that's 14. 14 was the worst for me.
Yeah.
15 got better.
But it's a crucial stage in life. And you haven't had your mom since you were 2 or 3. And now you don't have your dad. So like, yeah, it's a lot to fucking cope with.
Yeah.
Well, Bernie still did good. He graduated from Cooper High School in Abilene, Texas in 1976. And he started working at a funeral home, actually. And he had a very good knack for doing the hair and makeup on the deceased for some reason.
Yeah. A man after my own heart.
He was so good at doing the makeup, so good at doing the hair, and he actually enjoyed it. He started to like develop a passion for the funeral business. And so in 1985, he decided to move to Carthage in East Texas. It is a very small town. They've got like less than we're right over 6,000 people. So it's a small town, Texas. And I grew up in small town, Texas. So I can only imagine. Yeah, I can vouch for small town, Texas. It's one of those like, everybody knows everybody's business. And Bernie moves into that town and he starts working as an assistant funeral director at Hawthorne Funeral Home. Now, Bernie was phenomenal at his job. Not only did he have a knack for doing like hair and makeup, but he also did everything else that comes along with the funeral shenanigans. He'd do the greetings, the singing, the preaching, the reading of the scripture, the organizing, the arrangements. He would help people write eulogies. He was literally like...
He was the death guy.
Yeah, he was like the one-man band when it came to dead, dying, and deceased.
He could open a place and just take care of it all.
And honestly, Bernie, he should have. He should have just stuck with death in that realm.
Okay.
But he didn't.
Oh, I'm
Poor
nervous.
Bernie. He did not. Okay. But Bernie was a very lovable guy. Okay. He was the type of person that loved being involved in the community and like all the community had to offer. He was a lay preacher. He was a featured soloist in the choir at the First United Methodist Church. He sponsored Little League teams and he even volunteered at local community colleges with their like music and theater department. And he was even on the Chamber of Commerce Christmas decorating committee.
This is a jack of all trades.
Yeah, he was very involved in his community. And since he was very involved in the community, it meant that everybody
knew him?
knew Bernie.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody knew Bernie. And not only that, everybody loved Bernie.
Aww.
He was very charismatic. He was kind. He was lovable. People said that he had just like a magnetic personality. So it didn't take long for them to connect and like really enjoy Bernie as a person. They said that when he was driving through town in his little car, he would literally just be driving and smiling at everybody.
So cute.
Isn't it? It's adorable.
Oh my God. Like who is ever that happy with their life?
I know. And it's like one of those people that you would say like they walked into the room and they lit up the room with their smile. It was like his happiness was contagious.
Yeah.
He was just a very warm and loving spirit to be around.
Sunshine in the flesh.
Yeah, sunshine and rainbows was Bernie Tiede. So he was also the type of guy that would always put others first and he would always think of others. But Bernie was not great with money. And because he always put people first, when he would go shopping, he was what we would call a shopaholic. If he saw something he liked in a store, it's so funny, he would buy every single one that the store had. Like,
what?
Let's say, yeah, I know.
Why?
If there was like a tiny little clock and he was like, that's a cute clock. If the store had 50, he bought all 50. And then he would give them out as gifts to random people, not for birthdays or like special occasions. He'd be like, I was thinking of you. Here's the clock. Like he would do that all the time.
Why do I love him right now?
I know. But Bernie was only a funeral, director. And so he was only making like $26,000 a year. So he was racking up some credit card debt. You know, he wasn't the wisest when it came to his financial choices, but he was loved. And at least he had that. Okay. Not only was he just like super kind to everybody, but his kindness extended to even the little old ladies in Carthage, Texas, which it's a small town in Texas. So there was a lot of little old ladies. And little old ladies, a lot of them are widows because their husbands have died. And he knows whose husbands have died because he's the funeral director. So Bernie loved his little old ladies and he would go check on them. He'd bring them little gifts. After their husband died, he would take them out to lunch. He would help them run errands. He'd go pick up their medicine from the pharmacy. Whatever these little old ladies needed, he was there. And it was really just to like be a friend and care for them. And so much so that there was one little woman named Gracie Duke, and she had complained to Bernie that she had some aches in her bones. And so Bernie took her all the way to Rock Springs, Arkansas, so that she could soak in the hot springs. literally drove this little old lady all the way to Arkansas.
That's so sweet.
Isn't it? It's like, oh my God, Bernie, you were so nice.
I don't think this is a crime podcast anymore. I think this is a sweet old lady smiley dude podcast.
Yeah, that's okay. We're getting there. We're getting there. Hold on.
I feel like it's going to get so bad. Like, it's so good, it's about to get so bad kind of thing. Like extremes.
It's going to get bad. It's not going to get so bad because my version of so bad is like torture and mayhem. And so like, it's going to go bad.
My version of so bad, we're not doing anything with animals. I cannot.
No, I can't. I don't know. And that's weird. It's like, I have a hard time with that, but
I don't know. I can't vibe with that. If anyone even thinks about my dog the wrong way, I'm like, come here. Let's curb stomp a bitch.
Seriously. Oh, okay. Well, we've learned about Bernie and how absolutely nice he was. He was a wonderful human being. Okay. He was literally seen as the nicest man in town. Everybody loved him. Okay. But now we're going to learn about the other main, the actual victim in this case. It is an old lady named Marjorie Nugent.
Stop.
Okay. I know. Okay. She was born. Just hold on to that. Hold on to that thought, though.
Okay.
She was, like I told you, this is going to have you all over the place. Okay. Marjorie was born February 6th, 1916. She had two younger sisters, Sue and Merrill. Now, growing up, Marjorie's dad was very wealthy. He was a merchant. And so her whole life, she didn't go without. And she was surrounded by money. But at a young age, she let her financial status get to her. And many said that she thought very highly of herself and basically walked around with her nose in the air and her shit don't stink, basically. And she did this like from a young age. This was her personality.
She was the first mean girl.
Yeah. And she was mean to everybody. Okay. And we'll get into how mean and snooty Marjorie Nugent was. Her own sister, Merrill, talks about how she was scared of Marjorie all throughout their childhood. She would say that, quote, if you did something she didn't think was up to her standards, she'd tear it up and make you do it again. End quote. That was in their childhood.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. This is their childhood. Like, what, 8-year-old, 9-year-old's like, no, not good enough.
Who hurt her?
I know,
is she okay?
Right?
Who raised you?
Oh, okay. Merrill even said that she believed her own mother. So Merrill and Marjorie's own mother was scared of Marjorie.
Oh, that's the problem.
Yeah. Merrill even said, quote, sometimes I think she was the devil on earth, end quote.
Okay, this is how all horror films with children begin. This is how.
Right. Well, she never committed any crimes that I know, but she was just a mean person. And it got worse with age.
She's a mean girl.
Later on in life, like way later, Merrill, the younger sister, and then Marjorie, they had a falling out over a disagreement of their father's will, like how it should be handled. And so they had a big falling out and they stopped talking. When Marjorie went to college, she met a man named Rod Nugent, and in 1937, they got married. Now, Rod quickly got a job with Magnolia Oil, which now, today, we know as Mobil. So he was way at the beginning of the oil boom in the 60s. He was an independent oil man. And during that time, oil men could make a shit ton of money. And he did. Throughout the 60s, they racked up, 60s, 70s and on. They racked up money after money after money and became very, very wealthy. Much, much more wealthy than she had growing up. They ended up having one son, which was Rod Jr., okay? Merrill's son. So Merrill was Marjorie Nugent's sister, okay? So she had a son, Joe, okay? Joe did not like his Aunt Marjorie. She was not nice to him, okay?
Okay.
He said, growing up, she threatened to put him in a mental institution because he wouldn't cut his hair.
You know what?
That's an extreme.
I have heard that before.
Really?
This is not the first time. As a hairstylist, I have heard of stories.
Lola's a hairstylist, guys.
Where like people were could be very extreme with the whole like, you have to cut your hair kind of thing. I mean,
oh my God. Well, and that generation, like my grandma, she hates beards and mustaches and everything.
Really?
And I've never seen my dad without a mustache. And like, I swear every time we'd be around her, she's like, when are you going to shave that thing off your face? And my dad never did. So I think it also like plays into like that generation.
Probably too.
know?
And
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's something that's actually, how do I describe it? It's like inherited understanding of like
Mhm.
the way that you wear your hair or the length of your
Mhm.
hair determines status. Like,
Mm.
like early Egyptian culture back in Renaissance
Really?
days, Chinese, culture.
Okay, that makes sense.
It was all very like the way that you wear your hair and the color of your hair could tell your status or your rank or your marital status kind of thing too. And
What does purple mean? Because now I want to know, what is my status? Short purple hair.
they did not have a status for that. I just know that blonde people were the poorest in most cultures.
Really?
Yeah, if you were poor, was this... I'm trying to think of culturally, like, or geographically where this was most prevalent, but I don't really understand. I don't remember where exactly, but I remember that black hair was the richest. Red hair was like middle class, like red and brown was middle class, and then blonde was like the poorest of the poor. And if you tried
Wow.
to color your hair differently than like what your status was or what your rank was, you could be punished and jailed and like
No way.
stuff like that. It's
Okay,
insane.
My ADHD hyperfixation tomorrow is going to be researching history of hair colors.
It's in my cosmetology book downstairs. I swear to God. Like,
that's so cool. You're going to have to send it to me. Also, I know we're like getting on a major side note here, guys, but like hang with us. But we talked about the Morbid podcast. Well, again, shout out. I'm going to shout out that podcast a lot because I just absolutely fucking love them.
Morbid sponsor us.
Right. Right. Which I just had this thought, like, that's hilarious because Ash is a hairstylist. And so then, like, you were talking about you're a hairstylist. I was like, oh my God, that's even funnier. Like,
Stop.
look at us. Like Morbid wannabes.
Oh my
It's
God.
okay. I love them.
Are we like,
idols.
are we the Walmart brand of Morbid? Are we the Great Value Morbid?
I will tote that. I will claim that.
I would wear that
I like
proudly.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to our story.
Back to the story.
Where were we at? Okay. Oh, we're talking about how Joe, her nephew,
Mm-hmm.
did not like Aunt Marge. Aunt Marjorie was, she's a little mean. Okay. So she threatened to put him in the mental institution because he wouldn't cut his hair. Okay. She also chased him around the garden with garden shears because Joe refused to clean out a wasp nest with his bare hands.
What?
Yeah. Then, just wait. It's not over. And then at 14, she locked him in her home, in a room, and wouldn't let him out or wouldn't let him call his mom for 2 days. She left to go to like the grocery store and the maid felt bad for him. So she unlocked the door so he could get to the phone and he called his mom freaking out, like, come and save me. This bitch locked me in a room for 2 days. So his mom, Meryl, came over and rescued him from her house. And he said he never went back to her house after that.
My brow is so furrowed.
Oh, just wait, because I'm gonna make it go higher. Are you ready for me to make it go higher? This woman,
Marjorie,
I swear.
what is happening? Okay.
Okay. Marjorie loved shopping and she loved sewing. Okay. She loved all the like girly things. But like I said earlier, they only had one kid and it was a boy. They had Rod Jr. Okay. So she wanted a girl. So she developed a plan. This woman, she developed a plan and she tried to get her sister, Meryl, and her husband declared as unfit parents so that she could take custody of their daughter, Carrie. Yeah. Yes. 1,000%. She tried to do that. She tried to say that the husband was an alcoholic. And mind you, he like barely ever drank. And so that was a lie. But they had to get like lawyers and attorneys involved. And thankfully, Marjorie was not successful. but like, this bitch tried to steal her sister's kid. Like, sorry.
Fuck the masses. What is happening?
She's dead now, so I shouldn't call her a bitch. I'm sorry. But okay, that was a bitch move. Like, you're trying to steal somebody's kid. And not just somebody's kid, like your own sister's kid. Who the fuck does that?
I'm trying to imagine if my aunt had ever tried to do something like that. This is weird. This is weird because sometimes aunts take on like this motherly, like a second mother kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what broke in her mind? That's my question.
I think she was born with this, like, I am better than everybody else. And especially growing up wealthy, she had that opinion of herself. So I think it just kind of bled over into every aspect. And so she tried to say that she would be able to provide a more stable home for Carrie.
What did her home look like, though? Was she locking her other things away
I know, right?
In the basement?
You just locked a 14-year-old in a bedroom. Like, what? Like, this doesn't scream, I'm a stable caregiver.
Wait, how old was the child that she was trying to get custody of?
I don't know, because they don't go into major detail, because it's Joe that shared that story. He doesn't go into major detail on like how old Carrie was or when and what year this happened. But
gotcha.
Well, okay. Due to Rod, Marjorie's husband, due to him traveling as an oil man, they kind of moved around a little bit after they got married and when she had Rod. But they ended up landing in Midland to raise Rod Jr. But after he was grown, they decided to move back to Carthage. And they moved back to Carthage of very, very wealthy people. They were the wealthiest of the wealthiest in Carthage. And you have to remember, like, during this time in Texas, it was definitely like oil money in this area of Texas. It's East Texas. And so there were other wealthy people in the town, but she was definitely the, or if not one of the wealthiest people. And she let everybody know that her wealth was the wealthiest.
Her wealth was the wealthiest. My money is all the monies.
Yeah.
My money is the most monies.
And when they got to the town, her husband, Rod, ended up buying a majority stake in the local bank. And so now they've got oil money and they own the majority stake in this local bank. So they're making money off that too. So like their money's making money. Okay. Well, as they settled into life in Carthage, Marjorie quickly made a name for herself, and the local townspeople hated her.
I was going to say, as the town bitch, was that it?
Basically, everyone did not like Marjorie. Like I said, she lorded her money over people. She felt like she was too good for the town. Like she grew up thinking she was better than everybody else, and she still had that same sense back in those days. She was very snooty, and she was also very stingy, even though she was super wealthy. Apparently, a local vet was going to charge her $45 to see her animal. And she was like, no, that is too expensive. And she got him to lower his rates. And she still complained that it was too expensive, even though she took her dog there. And
that is a reasonable price. No.
I know. I'm like,
I mean, if you got that much money already.
Right?
And even for the times, that was expensive, but
yeah, I was going to say, like, that's not that expensive. Then I was like, okay, but this was back in the 90s. And it was like 1990, 1991. So I was like, $45, that's kind of a lot. Because like, I just took my dog to get a wellness and it was like $35 for an examination. So like, I agree that was high, but also like, you're in the middle of nowhere, Texas, where
it's probably hard to come by a vet, or at least a good vet.
Yeah. And I'm sure he doesn't have a whole lot of clients. And so I'm sure he has to charge a little bit more.
Overcompensate,
just to pay for his bills.
Of course, yeah. But that makes sense.
Yeah, and it was said that when she would go by the bank her husband had a stake in, she would rarely talk to anyone.
What? Why?
I don't. Because she's mean, and she's like, "I'm too good for you. I'm not gonna talk." Nope.
She just sounds like a ray of sunshine out the ass. You know?
Yes. So there is a movie about this case, and I'll get into that movie in a little while. But Bernie, it's called Bernie. And the woman who plays Marjorie in the movie is a woman named Shirley MacLaine. Probably know her. She's a famous actress. Yeah. Shirley MacLaine plays Marjorie. Okay. Well, Marjorie's nephew, Joe, said that the face that she would make when she would go into character as Marjorie, she would purse her lips and get these like accusing eyes. And he said it was exactly like his Aunt Marjorie.
I'm trying to mimic it.
In real life.
I just look constipated.
I'm gonna give you an E for effort.
Thank you.
Well, he said that this was exactly like his Aunt Marge and what she would do in real life. And he said when she would make that face, it was a sign that she was about to tell you off for something she disapproved of and, quote, why you weren't good enough or smart enough or otherwise worthy of her time. She used it on sales clerks, on waiters, on farmhands, on housekeepers and cooks. She used it on my parents. She used it on me, end quote. So that, like, when you watch the movie, because I'm sure a lot of you will probably go watch the movie.
I was gonna say I have to watch this now. Everyone needs to watch so we can know the face.
I think it's on YouTube, and I think it's on either like Peacock or Paramount Plus or something. Once again, we'll link it in the show notes so you guys can go and watch it. But we'll talk about it more later on. But yeah, so you'll see that face. She would make that face. She was just a very judgmental person. She didn't have a lot of friends. The townspeople don't like her.
Oh, really?
She's got a bad reputation going on, right? Well, they had moved back to Carthage in 1989, I think it was. Well, Rod, he actually died from like heart failure a year later in 1990. So it was very unexpected and it was very quick. Well, it's Carthage. It's only like 6,000-ish people. And so, of course, his funeral is done at Hawthorne Funeral Homes. And so this is where Bernie and Marjorie cross paths.
Stop.
Yes. Now, Bernie took care of most of everything for Rod's funeral. He did the embalming. He helped pick out the coffin and the headstone. He arranged the flowers. He sang a hymn at the memorial service. He even escorted Marjorie to and from her husband's grave and at the cemetery. It was chilly, so Bernie offered her his coat, and she even wore his coat home.
That does not surprise me for some reason.
Right. Like knowing Bernie, like all that we've learned about Bernie, like, yeah, okay, that's like Bernie's being Bernie. 100%.
No, but I just feel like with her wearing it home, I feel like she didn't even like offer, be like, thank you so much. Here's your coat back. I think it was just like, I'm going home. I'm warming this.
Cold,
goodbye.
Yeah.
It's like not even a consideration for like, this is not my coat kind of thing.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I'm
seriously.
imagining. But
yeah, pretty much. Now, Bernie said that Marjorie looked like she needed a friend, and he knew of her reputation around town. And so he knew that she probably didn't have friends. And so he decided that he was going to befriend her. And so he did what he did with all the other widowed old ladies in town. And he started visiting Marjorie and checking on her. And that turned into them going to dinner and going out and doing errands together. And before long, they were basically inseparable. They went.
Are they falling in love?
They didn't only go out to dinner, and they didn't only go out to outings. They would actually even go to Broadway shows.
Same thing. It's fine.
Broadway shows, and they even traveled. And they were even seen holding hands when they were out together in public.
Called
now, right? In a small town in Carthage, you know, rumors are going to spread very, very quickly, especially when everybody knows everybody, and especially everybody knows Bernie. Bernie's Bernie, and everybody knows Marjorie because she's mean. So they're going to notice this, right? So rumors are starting to spread about the nature of their relationship. And one of Mr. Nugent's old business friends had testified in court that when he saw them interact in public, it made him very uncomfortable. And he said, quote, I would say that the greeting kiss and the goodbye kiss was not one you would give to your mother.
Oh my. Sexuals.
Right? So people around town were a little confused. Bernie was a great man. You know, everyone loved him. So like, why wasn't he dating? Why didn't he find somebody his own age? And they, of course, were like, is he doing this, you know, for Marjorie's money? Because all of this stuff that they were doing and going and traveling and all of this, it was paid for by Marjorie. Like this woman's estate and worth was like $10 million at this time in 1990. That's a lot of money. Like,
I would take that in today's money.
Right. What is that in today's money? You Google that while I keep going, because I want to know what 10 million is in 1990, what that is in 2023. Okay. Well, everyone's confused. They're like, why aren't you dating? And of course, the first rumor that goes around when it comes to that is they thought that Bernie might be gay. The funeral director even stated that many thought that Bernie was, quote, light in the loafers, end quote, which I had
What
to
is
Google
light
this.
in the loafers?
Right? I didn't know what that meant.
Is that
That's apparently
gay?
Yeah, that's a derogatory way of calling somebody gay. It refers to how gay men walk, and society deems some gay men as walking more feminine instead of like masculine, like
clomping around,
like a
clomping like
gorilla.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to know the
yes, $10 million,
the inflation rate and everything? Okay, so
oh God,
bad.
I don't want to know. I do and I don't.
I don't even. Is this 23? That's not 23 million. How many zeros are in million? I just forgot.
6? No, 9.
Is it 9?
Right? No,
it's 6, right?
6.
Okay, then it's $23,210,635 approximately.
Over doubled?
Yeah, in 2023.
Shut your face. Oh my gosh. Well, we're about to make this even crazier, okay? So light in the loafers, right? Derogatory way of saying somebody's gay. Many thought that he was gay, but they thought that he was being celibate because Bernie's religious. He was a preacher and, he was in the choir. He's part of the Methodist Church. So because of his religious beliefs, he couldn't act out on his sexuality. Now, we do find out later in this case that Bernie is gay, and he states that he knew about the rumors between, of him and Marjorie, but that there was nothing ever sexual between him and Marjorie, and that he actually saw her as a mother figure. So from what we know, there was never anything sexual between the two. Now, when I say that they took trips together, right? Like they're doing everything together. Now, these weren't just trips to like California. No, they went to Hong Kong. They went to Bangkok. They went to Russia. And they even cruised the Nile River. And they didn't just travel to all these places. They went first class. Like they were getting like all of the all. And
but of
going
course,
to the big Broadway shows. And, this was making Marjorie actually really happy. Bernie said that he felt like Marjorie was actually the happiest that she'd ever been in her whole life, and that she was actually getting to do things that she wasn't even able to do in her marriage. These aren't things that some oil man from Texas is going to want to go and do for the most part. Like, maybe travel to some of these places, but he's not going to want to go to Broadway shows. Like most gay men, not all, but most gay men, that's something that they're like, oh yeah, I want to do that,
At least they wouldn't immediately oppose it most of the time.
Exactly.
Be like, no, what?
Yeah, because more gay men are, firm
cultured?
in their cultured, yes.
Cultured.
And they're more firm in who they are. They're not this like toxic masculinity. And when they hear stuff like that, they're like, I can't do that. That's feminine,
They can chop a tree. They can paint their nails,
Yes.
If you're secure, it doesn't matter which way you swing.
We love us some gay men. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We do. Shout out to my brother. Woo woo.
We love your brother.
Yes,
I don't know his name. It's fine.
I was so about to say Bubba, but his name's Glenn. Bubba was what we called him growing up.
Bubba, that's so good.
Yeah, I know. He hasn't been called that in years, but Glenn is his name. He is a big proponent of this podcast. He's so excited for us. But
love you, Glenn.
Anyway, so yes, we do love our gay men. Okay. So Bernie was loving all of this because they would go on these trips and they would also go on shopping sprees. So Bernie was getting tons of shit. He was getting all this shit bought for him. He was just living high, right? And Bernie, like I said earlier, he was only making $26,000 at the funeral home. So I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be passing this up. And Bernie sure as hell was not passing this up. Bernie was all she had because her son Rod didn't visit much. He was like some kind of doctor or something in Midland. So he didn't visit much. And they were kind of, I think they didn't have the best of relationships because, Marjorie was his mom. So like, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that he was kind of probably done with her bullshit.
He probably was put in a basement. It's fine.
He probably was. Like if she was locking up her nephew, like, he probably didn't have the best childhood. Like, I'm just going to guess this. He does not say that. He does not talk anything about that.
Bless his heart, as us Southern gals would say.
So in 1991, Marge wrote her only son out of her will, and she made Bernie the sole beneficiary of her $10 million estate. Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. According to Marge's cousin, she said that Marjorie did not want any of her family to get any of her money because they didn't, quote unquote, appreciate her. Which, from what we know about Marjorie, like, I believe that. Like, I believe that that's definitely what she said.
Mm-hmm.
They don't appreciate me because she thought of herself very highly. And so if they aren't going out of their way to visit her and bend over backwards to serve her wants and needs, then she's like, fuck it. You don't get my $10 million. I'm going to give it to this Bernie guy that I've known for an all of 1 year at this point.
I was going to say, it was only like a year or two that they knew each other.
At this point, it was only a year because it was 1991 and it was in 1990 that Rod died.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a year, maybe slightly over, maybe even slightly under. But
that developed quickly.
I know. Like, that's almost faster than an evangelical courtship.
Damn. Call me out. Call me out.
Hey, I met my husband and then we got married. From the day we met to the day we got married was just over 4 months.
Oh, you're worse than me. It was 6 months with me and my ex.
Everyone likes to be like, "Were yours worked out?" And I'm like, "Okay, I am the exception to this whole scenario, okay? Like, this is not the norm. The norm is divorce within a few years, okay? Don't do what I did, okay? Date around." Anyway, moving on with the case. So, not only did her son and her not have a good relationship, she didn't have a good relationship with her son's 3 kids. So her grandchildren, these are her only grandchildren, mind you. They're 3 girls. They had actually sued their grandma because apparently when the grandpa died, there was some like trust money set aside for the 3 kids and she was not getting it or giving it to them. And so because she wasn't doing that, they just sued their grandma. And yeah, so there was just a lot of tension and a lot of, I think, Marjorie hoarding her money and...
More money, more problems.
Exactly. Agreed. Well, then in 1993, so just a couple years later, this is only 3 years after Marge and Bernie met, she convinced Bernie to quit his job at the funeral home and become her full-time, quote, business manager. Now, Bernie, of course, said yes, because this was coming with a substantial pay raise. Remember, $26,000 is all he was making, which is decent back then, but still, like, who's going to say no? And he was not about to pass up not only the big pay raise, but also the fancy meals, the traveling, the shopping sprees, all the things that come along with it.
The benefits that come with the job.
Like, the benefit package was overwhelming with this position. And when Bernie, of course, said yes, she gave him full access to her checking accounts so that he could be the one to pay all of her bills. And he says that Marge told him to spend some of the money on himself. And she apparently allegedly gave Bernie, I couldn't completely confirm this, but I'm pretty sure this is true. She gave Bernie $100,000 advance and he went out and he bought himself a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house where he decorated the front lawn with his collection of penguins in tuxedos because he thought it was so cute. And he even was a collector of watches. He had 40 different watches and he set them up in his house to display. And one of them was a $7,000 Rolex that he got from Marjorie herself. Like, there's a lot of money spent on this man. Okay.
I don't know why I just thought of this, but I wonder if they were all the watches that he had, if they were all set to the right time.
I don't know.
That doesn't matter. I don't know why.
It does not matter, but knowing Bernie, probably. Okay. Also, with this $100,000, Bernie earned his pilot's license and he bought himself 4 planes.
4? I'm sorry. 4. Where are you going to park them?
4.
Does she have a strip?
Hangars? Yeah, I don't know. He bought himself 4 planes. Okay, and that's just wait. Okay. Well, since Marge was wealthy, she had a stockbroker. I can't talk. I swear.
It's fine. That's the same thing,
right? Same thing. Okay, his name was Lloyd. And he helped her with all her investments. Well, eventually Bernie started to call Lloyd and tell him his opinion on what she needed to invest her money in. And Lloyd was not appreciative of this, so much so that he even said to Bernie one time, "What do you know about the stock market? You're nothing than an undertaker."
Oh.
And he hung up on Bernie. But this pissed Marge off. And she was like, "How dare you talk to Bernie like that?" And so Marge called Lloyd back and was like, "How dare you? Don't you ever talk to Bernie like that way again. And if you do, I'm going to take my money and find myself another stockbroker."
Damn.
Lloyd was going to be out a lot of money. And so Lloyd was like, "I'm sorry."
Hey, she's loyal. I'll give her that.
Right? She was, okay? Bernie even got Marge back in church. And she even hosted a women's Bible study in her home.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. He got the church thing going on.
I see you. I see you.
He was religious, and he got her back.
He was rubbing off on her. He was trying to get her to do some good things.
Jesus, let's do some Jesus, okay?
Yeah. Meet with the ladies' Bible class. So sweet.
Not sure that it worked because, unfortunately, as time went on, Marge started to become more and more possessive of Bernie in his time. She gave him a pager and expected him to be at her beck and call whenever she needed him.
I mean, he's an employee, so he signed up for this.
Right? He knew what he was signing up for. Like, he knew what he was signing up for because he knew her reputation before he even, like, befriended her.
And he was friends with her before he accepted this job offer kind of thing, too. So, like, he knew
exactly
the good, the bad, the ugly. He'd been on trips. He'd stayed overnight. He knew.
He walked into it. And I think he let the flashy stuff, all the purchases and all that, he let that be what motivated his decisions. He overlooked everything else, right?
Yeah.
Also, every morning he was supposed to be at her house at 7 a.m. to make her coffee. They had lunch together. Bernie said that many times when he was with other people, he would have to interrupt their time to call Marge, or she would, quote, "give him living hell," is what he said. At trial, Bernie said, "I picked out her clothes. I helped her with her laundry. I, on occasion, trimmed her toenails, helped her pull out the long hairs that grew in her chin."
Oh. Oh.
"And combed her hair in the morning." Which I have to say, like, okay, that's not necessarily the job description for a business manager, but she's also an old lady. So, like, there's probably more that comes along with business manager when it's an old lady than...
Well, and too, if it's your friend, you know, you kind of go the extra mile. I mean...
Yeah. And she expected him to go the extra mile because she's footing all the bills for all this stuff.
I mean, the benefits package, it's expensive. Right. Therefore, you must pay your dues.
And with each passing day, it was as if Marge became more and more mean-spirited towards Bernie. He wanted to leave, but of course the money was too good, like we've said, and he liked those finer things in life. And that was keeping him there.
You get accustomed to it.
You do. And he did. Like, this has been years at this point, 5 years, 6 years. He also said that he was scared to leave because he had seen, quote, firsthand how vindictive Marge could be when someone crossed her. So, for example, this is how, I swear, vindictive this lady is. Marge loved her garden and she loved her flowers and she took pride in them. But one year, in her opinion, the flowers didn't bloom quick enough or as soon as she thought that they should bloom. So she fired her gardener.
Why? What?
Full on fired her gardener because the flowers didn't bloom in time.
What?
I'm sorry. Spring was a little late that year, Marge. It's not the gardener's fault.
Damn, Jackie, I can't control the weather.
Right? Also, okay, there were armadillos eating her flowers. Wait, she loves her flowers. And so she had Bernie buy her a .22 rifle to kill them.
Stop.
To kill the armadillos in order to save her garden.
We weren't going to talk about animals. God.
Well, that's as far as we're going with animals.
Okay,
so
good.
Just don't think of armadillos.
Okay? Maybe their armor saved them. I'm going to think that's what happened. The armor saved them.
Well, I will say that Bernie didn't really shoot anything in his life. And so I'm going to assume that
I'm sure he missed.
Yeah, that's what we're going to tell ourselves.
Thank God.
He missed the armadillos and they got a good dinner of flowers.
Perfect.
Each night. So Minnie again asked him why he didn't just leave because she was becoming so mean and so vindictive and so just abusive. But Bernie said that he thinks around this time is when he started to assume that Marjorie started to develop dementia. And if you've ever dealt with anybody with Alzheimer's or dementia, like as it progresses, they get pretty mean. Like my grandma-in-law, I guess is what you'd call her. There were some like really funny stories like in the last days of her life because she had, I think she had dementia or was it Alzheimer's? One of the two. But she had some very mean-spirited moments, but that's very common with dementia and you just learn to kind of like laugh it off. But if this was undiagnosed, like I could see where Bernie was just like frustrated, but didn't know how to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't want her to be alone. And he knew that she wasn't close to her entire family. They had all like were estranged from her. So he knew
that all she had pretty much.
Yeah. And he didn't want to be the one to leave her alone. And he's like, I'd feel really guilty. Mm-hmm. So he just stayed. But as every day went on, this was becoming way too much for Bernie to handle. And on the morning of November 9th, 1996, just 6 years after he met Marjorie Nugent, Bernie snapped. Okay. That day he woke up and he went to Marge's house at 7 a.m. to make her breakfast. Before leaving to go home, because he wanted to go take a shower, he noticed the .22 rifle and he decided to take it and put it in the bathroom near the garage. Then at 10 a.m., he came back after taking his shower and getting ready. He came back to the house and was going to take Marge to Longview to go to the dry cleaners. I think he needed to go to the dry cleaners himself. And so he had actually called and said, do you want to come with me? We can eat at this specific restaurant. And so Marge was like, yeah, I'll go along. So he came by to pick her up. Well, when they entered the garage, she was ahead of Bernie. She leaned down when she got towards the car to pet her dog, Bo. When Bernie decided to take the rifle from the bathroom and he shot Marge in the back. Now, the first shot made her fall to the ground, but she was still breathing. The examiner says that first shot paralyzed her from what I have been able to understand. Don't hold me to that, but the first shot paralyzed her. But she was still alive, right? Bernie then walked towards her, shot her again, and then he put the gun directly on her back and shot her 2 more times until Marge was dead. He snapped. Now, he says that he says she must have been berating me that morning, is what he says. He says a lot of it he doesn't remember, that it's just kind of like what he's been able to piece together. And we'll come back to that because I have some opinions, okay? Well, he then dragged Marge's body down the hallway towards what she called her utility room. He opened up the deep freezer, removed some food, wrapped her body in a Lanzin sheet, placed her in the freezer, and then he put the food back on top, hiding the body. Bernie returned to the garage and cleaned up the blood, but then he went on with his day as if everything was fucking normal. He went to a rehearsal. And then he went to a Pizza Hut and bought food for the whole cast that was at this rehearsal with him. Everybody who saw Bernie that day and interacted with him the following days and even weeks after this happened.
Weeks?
Oh, just wait. Perfectly normal. No different. Like nobody was different. And Bernie tries to say, like, I can't lie. I don't know how I pulled all this off. But people said that he could have won like a Academy Award for the performance he put on from the time Marjorie was shot and killed and to the time she was found in the freezer. Okay.
Did he have a psychotic break? Did he not remember what he did?
I don't want to jump the gun, but we will talk about that.
Okay.
So Bernie had to keep up with Marjorie's affairs. You know, like she's dead and he doesn't want to get caught. So he has to keep up with all her affairs. So he's paying her bills. He's running all her house operations, like paying the gardener and making sure the lawn gets mowed and all the stuff gets taken care of so that it looks as if life is as normal. Marjorie is still there and everything's normal. And when people would ask about Marge or call or anything like that, he would say that she was napping or, oh, you just missed her. She just walked out. Or then he'd be like, I'll give her the message. I'll make sure she calls you back. But time started to go on. And that excuse was only going to get him so far. So then he had to start making bigger excuses that would account for this big lapse of time. And so then he started saying that she was visiting her sister in Ohio. And then he started saying she had a stroke and now she can't speak and she's in the hospital. He went far with this. Bernie even during this time started to spend her money, and not just a little bit. He's spent a lot. He spent a lot of her money.
How much? What did he buy? Do you know what he bought? Do you have the itemized receipt?
I have an overview.
Okay.
Not itemized, but an overview. His 4 planes weren't enough, so he bought more.
Planes?
Planes.
He bought more planes.
More planes. He bought more planes. I don't know how many he bought, but he bought more planes because 4 was not enough.
How many can you drive at once? What's wrong with you?
No idea. He invested in the local Western wear. I think it was called the Boot Scootin' Western Wear store.
Western wear?
Yeah. Yeah. Remember, we're in small town, Texas. So
that's so good.
There's that. He gave I think it was $100,000 to the church for the building fund. He bought 10 cars for different people and gave them to them. There was a trophy shop in town that was failing because it's a small town.
He's like
how many
Robin
of the
Hood.
6,000? Yeah,
but
pretty much.
Worse. It's Robin Hood, but rated R.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so. So yeah, the trophy shop was failing. And because remember, 6,000 people. So how many people need trophies every day?
I don't.
So he bought the trophy shop so that it could still operate and so that the local people could still get their trophies, like the local schools or organizations or whatever. So as time goes on, Marjorie is still dead, frozen in her freezer. And Bernie is acting as if everything is perfectly normal and he is continuing on with her affairs, paying her bills, and giving excuse after excuse to anybody and everybody that would ask. And he's spending her money. It is estimated that in the 9 months before he was arrested, yes, 9 months. It took 9 months for them to find
full
Marjorie
pregnancy.
Dead. Right. Oh my God. When you put it into that perspective, as somebody who has had 3 kids, holy shit, that's a long time.
I mean, and as someone that's a
God,
Christian,
I didn't think about it like that.
Wouldn't it eventually bother you?
He said it did. He said it got to him, but I don't see how it could get to you and you still be able to just.
And you don't confess. You don't turn yourself in. You don't tell somebody.
Or somebody's like, something's off here.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, too, no one really liked her anyway, so they were probably happy to not see her around or talk to her or,
Right. And that might have made it easier. But Bernie had convinced himself that spending Marge's money was what she would want him to do. Because remember, she said, not a thin dime is what she would say. I don't want my family to get no thin dime of mine. And so she would tell Bernie, spend my money, go spend it on whatever, because she knew she was old. She knew she didn't have much time left. So it's not like she could spend $10 million real fast, but shit, Bernie could for sure. Well, but as time went on, no one was seeing Marge. So Bernie's giving these excuses, but her stockbroker, Lloyd, he started to become suspicious because when Christmas came and passed and he sent his Christmas turkey to her, he didn't get a thank you card. And that wasn't like Marge. Marge sent out thank you cards. She was old school. Okay. And then she was expected to be in office to sign some important investment documents, but then she didn't show up. And so after that, Lloyd was like, something's wrong. I haven't even gotten a call from her. So he called the local sheriff's department and let them know that he was concerned and what was going on. But what he didn't know is that the sheriff's department had actually already gotten an anonymous tip from somebody telling them to look for Marge. Now, we still, to this day, I'm pretty sure, don't know where that anonymous call came from.
If you're the relative of the person, or if you're the person that did the anonymous tip, email us.
I know, right? I would like to know who it was, because then the sheriff had to be the one to contact Rod Jr., Marge's son, and let him know what was going on. He wasn't even looking for his mama. His mama gone for 9 months. Yes, they were estranged, but that's, wow. Like, well, I take back my judgment on that because they were estranged and Marjorie was a bitch. So, like, I can kind of understand them not looking for her. Well, so on August 19th, 1997, Rod Jr., one of his daughters, Jennifer, and then several county deputies went to Marge's house to look for evidence of where she might be or look for her herself. Like they were looking for like a receipt of like a hospital bill or maybe like a plane ticket or something to kind of explain where she might be. Well, they searched through the house and unfortunately it was Jennifer, her niece, who found her dead underneath the chicken pot pies. Yes, the Marie Callender chicken pot pies stuffed in the freezer.
What made her look in the freezer? That's my question.
They were looking everywhere. I think that they were already probably suspicious that something sinister had happened because remember in 1991, she changed her will and gave this strange man that she'd only known for a year her entire, make him the sole beneficiary of her $10 million estate. So I think they were probably assuming that Bernie did something, So they looked around for her and eventually found her in the freezer. Well, in order to preserve the evidence, they were very Texas and they took the entire freezer, Marge frozen in it, food, everything, stuck it on the back of a truck, hooked it up to a generator, and drove it all the way to the coroner's office in Dallas with Marge still inside of it, completely frozen on the back of a truck.
Oh my God.
Driving down the highway.
That's Texas. No.
Right. Literally, like I can vouch. That's Texas for you, right? Of course, the first person they want to interrogate is Bernie Tiede. He's the only one that's friends or, an associate really of Marge. So they start looking for him and they ended up finding him with a little league team and their parents. And he was getting ready to take them all out to dinner. And pay for their dinner. Right?
He's doing good services with the money, but he's just, boy, have you lost your mind? The whole thing?
I know. You feel so conflicted, like in so many different ways. Oh, well, they bring him in for questioning and Bernie broke. He confessed immediately. It was like he walked in the door and they were like, so we found Marge. I did it. I shot her. Like he just confessed right away.
Did he cry? Was he like,
oh yeah, crying? He said he felt guilty.
Remorseful. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He was remorseful. From what we can tell, he was crying. So, it looks like he's remorseful.
Mm.
And he said, yeah, he killed her. He killed her 9 months prior and he tells the whole story. So Bernie was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Now, this is a small town. Again, so the news of Bernie's arrest spread like wildfire. And instead of everyone being heartbroken over the death of a little old lady, they were all actually more upset that Bernie was arrested and they were sad for Bernie. That Sunday, after he was arrested, the Methodist preacher gave a sermon titled, When Life Doesn't Make Sense. And in this sermon, he said that he spoke about how Bernie needs their prayers and he needs to know that we are with him. Nothing was said about poor Marjorie.
The victim?
She was murdered and shot 4 times in the back. Rest in peace, dear Marge. Nothing. It was all poor Bernie.
Why does that track for me? Why does that track?
Oh, let me throw another loop in here for you, okay? Because you're going to get even more, okay? While they searched Bernie's home, they confiscated over 50, I'm laughing, like Bailey Sarian says, I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable. Okay, they confiscated over 50 videos of gay porn. And apparently these videos were filmed either by Bernie himself or he had paid somebody to film them. And allegedly some of the men in these videos were prominent men in the town.
Stop. Oh,
I'm not kidding.
Were they part of the church though?
I don't know. They didn't, no more came out about that. But Marjorie's money was paying to produce gay porn.
Marjorie is the producer for the main porn created in that town.
She's like what do they call it? The silent investor.
The startup for our gay porn industry is a dead woman.
Now, we're in Texas, remember? there is like homophobia to the extreme, especially during this time in Texas. And even after this all came out, the townspeople still stood by Bernie. He was constantly getting visitors who brought him food and reminded him he had their support. Many wondered why he didn't get rid of Marge's body, which this was a valid question. Like, dude, why did you keep her in the freezer?
Why didn't you move it ever? I mean, for months. Normally you end up moving it or trying to destroy it, I think.
Yeah. One townsperson even said, quote, I don't know why he didn't put her in one of those planes and fly her over the Gulf of Mexico and kick her out.
You know what? That's valid, though.
That's valid, but like, why are you saying that as a townsperson? Like, he's the murderer, okay? He's not the victim.
Oh, man. When you said I'd be conflicted, I really thought I would still be able to choose a side.
Right? Right.
I just think like being in such an emotionally torturous relationship and the love is there, but also the like frustration and the hurt. And I understand like the whole people snap. I mean, you get to a point, you snap. That doesn't mean what you did was right or justified.
Right.
But like, I understand how you could get to that point. It's just after that doesn't make sense.
No. And there's so many that I'm like, oh, okay, that was questionable. Like there's a lot of this. Like that's like Bernie. But he said that the reason he didn't move her body or get rid of it was that he's like, I couldn't abandon her. And that he valued his job and passion, like as a funeral director, that he wanted her to have a proper funeral. So he knew that he was going to get caught one day. And so he was just spending the money to spend the money and just biding his time until he got caught and until Marjorie could have a proper funeral. Because if you think about it, like if you really wanted to kill her and if this was like premeditated and not like he just snapped, like he could have like snuffed her out with a pillow or like poisoned her. And she's so old, they wouldn't have like looked into it.
Probably,
and he could have just inherited the 10 million and like life would have been life if it was like really that premeditated. Now you could argue that there was some premeditation because he does say that he took the gun and he put it in the bathroom by the garage. So like, was he doing that specifically to have it as easier access?
Was that just to get it out of the way? Was that to put it in the way kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah. And you could go either way. He doesn't like really go into that, but I see that as like, ooh, that's kind of damning in my opinion. It's a little, ooh, Bernie. Okay. The district attorney for this case, that was prosecuting it.
Was in the porn video. Nope. Sorry.
No, we don't know, which I like my curious ass is like, dude, I want a list. Like I
need to see the video.
Like, I'm nosy.
That's my issue. I need to see the video.
You're like, I need to, honestly, with these like old Texas men, I'm going to pass and I would rather see like nicer quality modern day gay porn.
Yeah.
Like that, like that's where, yeah.
I'm not saying it'd be pretty. I wouldn't want to watch it for the enjoyment. I gotta know.
I would watch it as an investigative reporter.
Were you the receiver? I must know.
Well, the district attorney, we're going to skate on past the gay porn.
Mm-hmm.
The district attorney was a man named Danny Buck. And yes, that's his real name. Okay.
That's cute.
So I thought it was a cute name too. He was approached time and time again by townspeople showing their support for Bernie. Okay. One day while he was eating at the local Daddy Sam's Barbecue and Catfish, yes, that is the name of the place, where a sign that says, "You kill it, I'll cook it," is hung.
Oh, don't do that to Marjorie. Oh, don't do that to Marjorie.
Oh, gosh. No. Marjorie definitely does not get eaten. Okay. So while he's eating there at this restaurant, he is starting to realize that he might not have such an open and shut case with this as he expected. A waitress approaches him and said, "Bernie's a sweet man, Danny Buck. He's done a lot of good things for this town. He's given poor kids money to go to college and everything." Someone else chimes in and says, "You got to admit nobody could sing Amazing Grace like Bernie could." Danny
all
Buck
circles back to the voice.
Then reminds everyone that Bernie confessed to a Texas Ranger that he shot Miss Nugent 4 times in the back and then stuffed her in her own deep freezer. Like, there's a confession here, guys. Like, we're not trying to piece evidence together. Like, we were given it on a silver platter. But then, even after Danny reminds everyone they have a confession, another man chimes in and says, it's just hard for me to believe that old Bernie could fire a gun straight. He acts, well, effeminate.
Effeminate.
So since he acts gay, he can't shoot a gun, is what he's getting at.
Well, he's probably
also,
at short range, so it probably...
Right, he's not that far from her.
I mean...
It's also a 22. I don't know if you've ever shot a 22 gun, caliber gun.
It's easier to shoot a 22 and hit your target.
Yeah, 22s are easy. There's basically no kickback or anything. Like, it's one of the easiest guns to shoot. So, like, come on. He could shoot that even if he had no experience. Yeah, he did. Another time when Danny Buck was at a convenience store, a woman told him, I don't care if Miss Nugent was the richest lady in town. She was so mean that if Bernie did kill her, you won't find anyone in town who's going to convict him for murder.
Ooh.
So
they're making valid points.
They are. And so this is when Danny Buck realizes, okay, we are not going to get a fair trial if we have the case held here in this county. Yeah, like, everyone's going to be like, let him off.
Save Bernie.
So right. The prosecution had to request that the trial be held in a different county, which is like unheard of for the prosecution to be one seeking this. Usually it's the defense. Yeah, because they're like, this is too like high profile.
Everybody thinks badly. Yeah.
Everyone thinks you're a horrible person or whatever. And so they have to be the ones to ask for a new county. No. It's the prosecution this time.
Great.
It was granted, and they held the trial in a neighboring county. Now, the trial took a while to get started, and it began in 1999. Now, remember, she was estranged from her son and his 3 kids at the time of her murder. But yet at the trial, they got on the stand and talked about how lovely, sweet, and kind their grandma was. Reminder, these are the same kids who sued her over the trust that their grandpa's estate and all that.
The prosecution trained them.
Right. Like,
there's no way.
The jury only took 90 minutes to deliberate before they found him guilty for murder in the first degree, and he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Bernie has done interviews where he says he regrets what he did, and that at night, Marge actually comes and visits him in his sleep, and he will have to live with that for the rest of his life.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's consequences of your actions, Bernie. Like, I'm sorry, you did. If you snapped, you snapped, but like, you did kill someone. So.
Oh, Marge.
Marge is not the person I would want visiting me in my sleep.
I bet she's nagging. him the whole time. Naggedy Ann.
What'd you spend my money on?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Well, Bernie's trying to make the best of it. And in jail, he spent his time teaching, doing church-related activities, making crafts, and he even got his paralegal license. Earlier, I talked about the movie. So in 2011, they did make this into a movie called Bernie. And Bernie is played by the lovable, the one and only Jack Black.
Stop.
And I tell you, he plays Bernie so good. It's good. You have to watch it. It's like a very dark comedy.
I have to.
On this show. And it's kind of done in like a documentary type way. And it's good. Shirley MacLaine plays Marge, and Matthew McConaughey plays Danny Buck, the DA. This movie brought so much attention to Bernie's case. And so in 2014, Bernie's lawyers brought forth the evidence that he was sexually abused by his uncle as a kid. It stated that it started at 12 and continued for years. Out of shame and guilt, he kept this to himself, like many victims of sexual assault do, and he didn't tell anyone. After another one of his uncle's victims came to Bernie, he encouraged Bernie to tell his story and come forth with what happened to Bernie.
Yeah.
So psychiatrists said that the abuse from Marge could have triggered memories of his childhood abuse, and it could have pushed him into having a dissociative episode that day. And based off of this evidence, Danny Buck actually agreed to give Bernie a lighter sentence.
Stop.
And so that was, yeah. But in order to do that, like he doesn't get to choose. He's just the DA. So what they have to do is it has to be approved and then it has to go to a retrial basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, or it's like a resentencing trial. So in 2014, a judge ordered that Bernie be released from jail on a $10,000 bond. And he had a bunch of like conditions he had to follow. And Bernie was set for a resentencing trial. And he, along with Danny Buck, were hoping that the outcome of this resentencing trial would be time served and that he would be able to be set free. Like even Danny Buck himself was like, all right, he's at this point, I think it was like 17 years in prison.
He started to root for him.
He did. He switched sides and he started to root for him. So meanwhile, he started a new life outside of jail. And while he waited for this resentencing trial, he joined the gay man's choir, which I thought was so cute.
The gay man's choir.
Yeah. And he joined a church in Austin, Texas, where, of course, everybody loved Bernie. He was a great guy. Well, on the other hand, Marge's grandkids weren't happy. They believed that the movie and his release on bond was just part of Bernie's big con, and they were not happy with any of it. Some of them didn't even believe that Bernie had been sexually assaulted, which I was like, okay, low blow there. Like, you can believe he's a con artist, but like,
we have to believe victims.
Yeah, like I don't like that. That rubbed me the wrong. Like I know they're hurt, but at the same time, like.
Side note, Bernie is adorable. Even looking at his mugshot, why is he adorable? And
he's like little chubby cheeks. Everyone go look at a picture of Bernie, Tiede. He's
also,
so
you can watch
funny.
that movie for free on YouTube, Peacock, Pluto, and Tubi.
Nice. Okay, so I said Paramount Plus in that, so I was wrong at that one. But I was right about Peacock and YouTube. Yeah. It's so good. Go watch it. Okay, so they did not like this. And they didn't believe that he was sexually abused. Mm-hmm. Well, at the resentencing trial, many testified about how Marge didn't want her family to get any of her money and that she would spend it how she wanted. She even spoke in favor of how Bernie was spending her money. And the defense even brought up the fact that her family wasn't looking for her. It was an anonymous tip, and Lloyd, the stockbroker, who alerted the police of Marge's whereabouts not being known. And then the police had to be the ones to reach out to Rod Jr. Mm-hmm. So if it was this like sunshine and rainbows type family and they loved her so dearly, why weren't they more involved? You know, why didn't they visit more often? Like Rod Jr. by her death, like he hadn't seen his mom in years.
Why was it almost a full year that she was dead? That like,
yeah,
you didn't know at all, you know?
Yeah. Which in my opinion is like, that's fine. Like you were estranged. She was a bitch. Like I get why you were estranged, but you can't come back and be like, it was all great. And she was a lovely person.
Exactly.
Like, did she deserve to die because she was mean? Absolutely not. Like just nobody deserves to die. She didn't deserve this, but like, you can't hide the fact that like she was who she was. Like this is reality. Now, yes, he still killed her and yes, he should still be held accountable to that. But like,
you got to hold the truths.
Yes. Oh, I see that all the time. Well,
is he alive? Is Bernie alive?
Bernie is still alive. Yes. Bernie is still alive and kicking. Okay.
We need to invite him on now.
Oh, I wish. I could play devil's advocate, right? So if they weren't on speaking terms, they could have been trying to get a hold of her. But since she had wrote them out of her will and they were estranged, they could have tried getting a hold of her and she wouldn't answer the phone.
Assumed she's not answering because...
Yeah. Because they said they did look for her or they were trying to get a hold of her. Uh-huh. They claimed that. So I will play devil's advocate for that moment. Like they could have. But on April 22nd, 2016, after 4 hours of deliberation, the resentencing jury sentenced Bernie to 99 years to life in prison. He basically got the same sentence.
Yeah.
Like he got nothing less. The Texas court, or they did try to appeal it, but the Texas Court of Appeals upheld the conviction and sentencing in August of 2017. Bernie resides in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice in Kennedy, Texas, and he isn't eligible for parole till August 3rd, 2029, which August 3rd is my birthday. So
that's weird. That's
know, right?
weird.
That's suspicious. Now, this is where I have a hard time with this case because Should he be held accountable? Absolutely. Like, you killed somebody. It's like, even if you snapped, even if it was a dissociative episode, which I have a hard time believing, but I'm also not a psychiatrist. So I'm not going to like say that that's not out of the realm of possibility, because psychiatrists have said it is. But I feel like life in prison for what he did is kind of a harsh sentence. Because isn't our justice system for rehabilitation, right?
Supposed to be.
Supposed to be. Yeah, supposed to be. And with having all of these character witnesses and all of these people, and even the DA themselves, Danny Buck, standing behind him, I could see, I don't know if 17 years is enough. Like, they were wanting him to get time served. I think it's, like, in my opinion, maybe closer to 30. You did take somebody's life, you know? And yes. I feel like I've heard that in a lot of the true crime cases that I've listened to. And that's a common sentencing time. If it's not like torturous, like diabolical and premeditated and all of this stuff, like 30 years seems to be enough. So I think I am of the opinion that I hope Bernie does get out in 2029.
This is idealistic of me, but part of me is like, serve some time in prison and then transition out into a mental health facility and be studied. Because this episode, this like psychotic break where like you were able to put it aside for 9 months and like you don't really remember a lot of what happened the day of the shooting and everything. Like, if you hold those things to be true, that should be studied, you know? And
I do know that when he was let out, because it was almost 2 years, like maybe it was like 14 months, 18 months, something like that, between him getting out in 2014 and then getting resentenced in 2016. I think one of his conditions was that he did like some kind of therapy, psychiatric stuff for sexual abuse victims. And so I think there was something of that. But
what was your trigger? We need to know so you don't kill again.
Yeah, and I think that's probably not just for him, but for everybody that comes out of prison, like trying to get back into life, that there's not like mental health options for them, for a lot of them.
There's not as many as there should be, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, not easily accessible based on, money, firstly.
Yeah. Do you think that after the 30 years when he gets out, like if he was to get out, do you think that, like, are you saying be studied or like transition to a mental health institution and then you spend your life in the mental health institution?
I think that would just depend on the data collected from the mental health facility.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because, I mean, if this was a one-time occurrence and they identify what the trigger was and are like pretty confident in it, maybe it would be fine. I mean, human error is going to happen too.
I didn't say this in the case, and I don't know why I didn't put it in the notes, but I'm remembering that in the first trial, like they had found that there was like some kind of account that Marjorie had that had a couple $1 million in it or something along those lines. And Bernie was on that account, and she thought there was a whole bunch of money in there, but he had drained it down to basically nothing.
When she was alive.
And then shortly, like a few days after her death, she was supposed to have like had some kind of meeting with the bank and look at some kind of documents or whatever. And she was going to find out that account was empty. Now, it wasn't allowed to be put in the first trial, but it was allowed to be put in the second trial. So
that adds a whole other layer to it then.
It does, but the hard part for me with that is I feel like there's not enough information, because on the surface, it looks really bad. But then when you like know the whole story of like she let him spend her money how she wanted, and then you had people testifying.
She gave him access.
Yeah. And you have people testifying that they heard her themselves say that she like approved of how Bernie was spending the money. it could be like, okay, are you grasping at straws here? And you were estranged from her. So like, how do you know that she knew?
She didn't have any friends. How do you know these conversations transpired? She wasn't close with family.
Yeah. And that one's hard for me because it's like, I don't feel like I know enough or that was explored enough for me to buy that as a premeditated motive for him to off Marjorie.
It's missing a lot of information. So
Yeah.
I also don't think I can really speak to it. But like, I will say with his spending habits, he did buy himself things. Yes. But he bought a lot of things for other people as like a good service kind of thing. Not to say that justifies using another person's money, especially without their consent. But like, it makes me think his heart was in the right place with a lot of things. A lot of his judgment was not always off. So like, that makes me feel like it was even more premeditated because his judgment is clear on what good, wholesome things are and what evil is.
The part I have a really hard time with is that he didn't turn himself in. He waited 9 months.
I feel like the guilt would eat me alive.
I know. It's not that he even waited 9 months. He didn't wait. He waited till he got caught and it took 9 months. But like that, like, whoa.
That's why you dissociated so hard and that you're able to maybe make yourself dissociate when you start feeling bad.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, you should be studied.
And I have a hard time because he's like, I'm not good at lying. But then other people are like, he could have literally won an Academy Award. And so then it's like, okay, I start to believe or I start to see like where the granddaughters are like, he's a con artist, you know, because it's like, he literally did fool everybody. See, and look, now I'm flipping. See, you guys, this is so hard. I don't know.
Yeah. You'll flip back if we keep talking about it. We'll just keep flipping, flip-flop. It's fine.
I would hate to be on a trial, like a jury. Like I would hate it.
No one ever call me for jury duty. I swear to God, it better not be a criminal case.
I will show up in the raunchiest fucking outfit on selection day. So they'd be like, okay, you can go home. You're dismissed. Thank you.
I would love to serve on a jury. I just feel like I would have a very difficult time, even if it was cut and dry case. I would look at that human and be like, you're about to go to a place that will not serve you, that you will not serve.
I think that I could do it and be very confident in my decision if it was a
child crime, yes.
Yes, I was going to say if it was a child crime and if there was very strong evidence, whether that's even circumstantial evidence. If it was very strong, I could be confident in my decision if it was against a child.
You know what? If it has to do with a child, don't put me in the courtroom with them.
I know, right? Like, I just want to like punch you in the face.
Something feral would unearth from me. I couldn't help it. I'm not even a mom. Wait till I am.
I know, right? Just wait. Okay, this was a longer case than I expected it to be.
Fine.
But we were talking a lot, and it's our first one, but we had fun. I enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. We didn't really get into a whole bunch of the religious aspect of it, but it's just like
the church defended somebody though. That
they did that. Which what's new?
The church defended and upheld somebody that committed murder when one of the 10 commandments is do not murder. Do not do that.
Oh, we could get into a lot of it, but it's like a lot of you fucked up. And as a Christian, I don't know how he didn't turn himself in. If religion is so big to him, like how did you fake it for 9 months? I don't.
You know what? Christianity must have not served him well because let me say this, I'm not a Christian anymore. And the guilt, even thinking about it, me not even doing it.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, it makes me like feel secondhand guilt or like weird transference guilt of like, oh, she sat there in a fucking freezer. And even though she was a shit person, nobody deserves to be shot in the back when you're facing away from them 4 times and then shoved in a freezer under pot pies.
Yeah. Yeah. Then that gets into the whole, like, if you're not a Christian, where do your morals come from kind of thing?
That's funny. They come from my heart.
Right?
They come from my heart. I'm just nice.
Morals are morals. Like, you just have them because you're a good person.
We're inherently born with that. Isn't that nice? It's a built-in moral system.
And we get into the whole religion doesn't keep you from being able to snap and commit a crime. You know, like it's not a catch-all protection.
Even with all the Bible knowledge, you can preach, you can teach, you can pray, you can sing, you can help the elderly. But at the end of the day, it doesn't keep you from snapping.
Especially when you bring in abuse, like emotional abuse or physical abuse. And he was definitely dealing with some emotional abuse. That's for dang sure.
Bernie, you had disadvantages from the start. I get that, but I did too, man.
I know. Like we've all had some shitty things happen. So you did make your choice and you've made your bed and you are sleeping in it. And so,
you know what's more fun than killing people is just gardening and holding frogs.
Yes. Oh my God. Or chickens, baby chicks.
Chickens.
They're so cute. They're so freaking cute.
My chickens are so happy. I gave them oranges today.
Oh, you did?
Yes. They're so happy.
Aww. My neighbors put a cabbage head in a like plant hanger and then like hung the plant hanger from the top. And,
yeah.
Dude, they devoured that cabbage head in like a matter of like 5 minutes. It was hilarious, but I loved watching them.
You can put like a head of lettuce or cabbage or whatever and like it looks almost like a hamster ball thing, but it's like,
oh yeah.
And they'll play with it. It's like a interactive kind of toy for them, and they'll chase it around and eat from it and stuff. It's so cute.
Oh my gosh, that's what I'm buying them. Meg, if you're listening to this, like, sorry, you already know what you're getting for Christmas this year. Okay. Shh, you didn't hear that. Okay.
I'm glad that we got to end on a happy note.
I know, right? Okay. Chickens. There we go. Palate cleanser. I think that's what Ash calls them. Palate cleanser. We talked about chickens and holding frogs. So, okay. That is the case of Bernie Tiede and the death of Marjorie Nugent.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks for listening. I'm so excited. Lola's going to be sharing next week. So tune in.
I hope I can do as good as Laci. She's the pro.
Oh, you will. You will. And like everything, we will get better. Hang tight with us as we figure out all of this and get everything nailed down, but you'll do great. And she's going to take you for a wild ride. So buckle up. I know this case, but I actually haven't listened to it in like 2 years. So I'm not refreshing myself so she can refresh me with you guys. So, all right. We will see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Also, heathens, if you're enjoying the show so far, please remember to subscribe on whatever platform you listen to us on and leave us a review because your salvation depends on it. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, leave us a review because we would absolutely love it. Deadly Faith is brought to you by Choircast Network. It's produced by Laci Bean and Lola Robbins and audio engineered by Eric Howe. Thanks for listening.